Alright, so the last addition to our application is going to be a search input so that we can type in a different username and it'll pull up that profile. So let's go to our profile component HTML, and I'm going to go above this div all the way at the top and create a div with a class of row. And then inside there, let's put a div with the class of colMD12, and we'll put in a form tag, and let's put a div with the class of form group. Okay, this is just Bootstrap stuff. And let's put an input, give it a class of form control, and let's give it a type of text, placeholder, placeholder will say enter a GitHub username. Alright, and then we're going to use something called ngModel. We're going to put some brackets and then some parentheses in the brackets and say ngModel. And we're going to set that to username. Alright, so that's going to allow us to basically bind data, two-way data binding from the component to the view, or to this input. Alright, so we'll be able to access this with this.username. Alright, now we want to make it so that when we start to type, we set off a function to search for that user that we're typing in. Alright, so to add an event, we want to use parentheses, and the event handler is going to be keyUp, or the event action, and that's going to call off a function called searchUser, which we have to create. Alright, let me just make sure that this is right. So we have placeholder, ngModel, keyUp. Alright, so that's good. We don't need a button. We're just going to use enter as the button. Actually, we don't even need to do enter if we use just keyUp. So let's go ahead and save that, and then we're going to go into our profile component TS, and let's create that search user function. And for right now, I'm just going to console.log. We'll just say it works. Alright, so now let's go ahead and look at the application. Let's open up a console. Now it says it looks like you're using the old forms module. So if we want to get rid of this, yeah, let's just get rid of that. So we'll go to main.ts, and let's go right here, and we're going to import, and this is going to be disable deprecated forms. Okay, and also provide forms, and that's going to be from Angular/forms. Alright, and then we just have to implement those down in the Bootstrap. So let's put a comma right here, and then set up brackets, and we're going to put that disable deprecated forms, which is a function, and then also the provide forms. Oops. Which is also a function. Alright, and then if there's any errors, we can actually catch those if we say .catch. And in here, let's say error any, and then we just want to console log any errors. Alright, so let's save that. If we go back, and let's see what this says. If ngModel is used within a form tag, either the name attribute must be set or the form control must be defined. So all we have to do to get rid of that is add a name attribute. So right here we'll say name equals username. Okay, so now everything's working. We don't have those errors. Now if I start typing in here, you'll see down here we get it works. Every time I type anything, it's going to run that, okay, because we're using the key up function, or I'm sorry, the key up event. So let's go back into profile component, and we can get rid of that now. And what we want to do is we want to add a username property here as well. So we're going to say username string, and then what we want to do is we're going to have to call another service function that we'll call update user, because we need to update that username that we have, which is just hard coded right now. So let's go down here and say this dot underscore GitHub service dot update user, and in here we're going to pass in this dot username, and then we want to run these two things again. So I'm going to copy those. Whoops. Let's copy those and paste them right here, because once we update the user, we want to re-render everything. Alright, so let's save that, and then we're going to go into the service, and we're going to create that update user. That's going to take in a username. And all we have to do is say this dot username equals username. Okay, so let's save that, and let's make sure everything is good. Alright, so if we go and start to type in this search box, you can see that it changes. Okay, so it's going to look up whatever is in there at that current time. So this user here has the username Bob for his GitHub account. Alright, if we say let's just start to type Steve, you can see that it just flashes through whatever's gonna match that current string is gonna show up. Alright, so what we want to do now is we want to make it so that there's no default. So if we go to the page, we don't want a user to be loaded. Okay, we just want to have the search bar there. So what we'll do is go in the constructor and just take all that out. Okay, so if we save that and the application reloads, actually, you know what? We don't want to do that. We want to set this dot user. Let's set that to false. Okay, so now we just have the search form, and if I start to type, you'll see that it shows up. If I put my name in, there we go. Alright, so our application is now working. So the application's done, but if you get to a certain amount of requests, it's not going to work anymore. Alright, and the reason for that is we didn't include an API key or a client ID, whatever GitHub calls it. So what we can do, I don't know the exact URL, but let's say register GitHub app. Oops. And right here, register a new GitHub app, and we can just add a name. Let's say GitHub app. It's probably taken. We'll say GitHub app search, homepage. You can just put anything here. Let's just put localhost. Description. We'll say simple GitHub app. Callback. I don't think this is really important either, but let's just put this. It might not let us use port numbers, but let's try it. Alright, so that did work. Alright, so now take note of the client ID and the client secret, and what we're going to do is go back over to the service, and let's go ahead and add two more properties right here. We're going to say private client ID and private client secret. Alright, and then what we'll do is just grab these. This one here. Grab that. And then we just want to add them onto these URLs. So right here, let's go ahead and just concatenate a string, and this will be, let's say, question mark client ID equals, and then we'll concatenate this dot client ID, and then we want to do ampersand client secret equals, and then we'll just concatenate this dot client secret. Okay, and then we want to do the same thing down here. This dot client secret. Alright, so if we save that, okay, we should get the same result. Well, I guess that's not going to work because it needs a key up. And there we go. Alright, so that's our application. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next project.